Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for those of you who were with us this morning. The idea behind this afternoon's webinar is just to make sure that you and your apprentices are in the right space and doing the right things to complete their projects and to go through the interview. For those of you who weren't with us this morning, we have set all of our webinars to record, but GoToWebinars has been having problems, not just at City and Guilds, but with a number of clients in getting the recordings to work. So we will be providing a separate set of these slides with a voiceover on our website in the next few days. So please bear with us. My name is Ken Gaines. I'm Technical Advisor for Digital Skills, and I'm joined this afternoon by my colleague David Wackett, who is the Industry Manager. Hello, David.
Hi, Ken. Hi, everybody. Thanks if you've been with us before. Thanks also in advance for your participation and questions. I think that they also help us as well, so it's always very helpful to have questions during this, as Ken's out and about under normal circumstances, as it were. But I tend to be more office-based, and I look after our portfolio of qualifications and endpoint assessments, and that means making sure that we are developing the right things at the right time that employers and centres are requesting in this sort of ever-changing environment. You know, the coronavirus aside, there's a lot of change and a lot of hassle an IT sector. So I'll hand you back.
There's some time set aside for questions, but we don't mind taking them as we go along. David will pick them up and we'll ask those so that everybody can hear them, and we'll go from there. So the idea behind this afternoon is we're taking lessons learned from our lead independent evidence that has been produced, the Summative Portfolio, the project. I apologise for that. The pass rates that we're seeing through our digital apprenticeships is really quite high in independent assessors. It is down to what you are doing with your apprentices, the work that you've put in and the work that they are putting in to both their summative portfolios, their projects, and the nice things that their employers are saying about them as well. About 96% pass rate with very high distinction rates within that as well. Thank you. So the first bit really is around the Synoptic project and things you need to make sure that your apprentices are doing. Centre packs that we provide, clearly that we're only providing the Synoptic project briefs that you can find out what they do the most and then match that with the Synoptic project that they will eventually take when you can look at the live projects yourself, and if you do, please don't share them with them, but you will see that there is a scenario, there is a whole section about who they are and what their job is and who they work for and the things that they're going to need to do. And what we urge you to impress upon, read all of that. And more importantly, they read the whole project. All of our projects, with probably the exception of one or two, 4 main tasks. The first task is usually about planning or some research, or it might be a combination of the two. The second task is about them actually doing the work, a report about the results and what happened, and the last task is usually some form of reflective piece or some form of testing that they're asked to. So it isn't completely complicated, but they do need to understand how each of those tasks work together. And what we would say in all of those tasks, their best of their ability. When planning their work, for example, in doing the task, don't spend 2 minutes in drawing something on a scrap of paper. Sources they need to do and put that sort of information into that plan. And they need to make sure that they understand the tasks. Now, you can't help them when they are doing these projects, and at the moment, clearly you can't be in the same room, which we'll talk about in a moment. But they can ask us, or if they don't quite understand the terminology. As long as you don't help them, you can answer those sorts of questions. And they need to keep an ongoing record of what they're doing and how they're carrying it out, and put that into the documents they're producing as their evidence. Make sure they complete as many tasks as possible. Don't do them to complete 3 tasks really well and only start and manage part of the final task than it is to do all of them sketchily. Don't panic. They should understand that that's life. Things can go wrong, and as long as they document what went wrong or how it went wrong and what they did or how they got to the end result that they got to, then that's part of what we're looking for. We would normally ask you to document what they're doing as a human video camera. Now, quite clearly, with the way we are at the moment in lockdown, that's not going to be possible. So NSAR have got a institute for apprenticeships and technical education. That means your apprentices can do the project from home. But you need to let our EPA team know that that is what you're going to do with a particular apprentice. Now, you can list more than one apprentice. I have produced a form that we can send you, but we need to know the apprentice and the City and Guilds registration number of that apprentice, and we need to know that they are doing the project from home because of the current situation with COVID-19. What you then need to get your apprentice to do, and either you can design your own forms, or again, I have quickly put together a form today, is they need to record the timing and what they do on each task. We're not looking for War and Peace, because clearly we'll see what they've done on each task from how long it's taken them and really when they've moved from activity to activity. And if you do those 2 things, then this morning I did speak to a centre who is going to set up with their apprentices a schedule with them to say, look, you need to do it over a certain. But the timing for the projects is still counting. So if it's something like infrastructure technician, it shouldn't be more than 15 to 20 hours. So that's all you should be doing. But you could arrange to drop in on them every now and again using Microsoft Teams to see how they're getting. So try and get a schedule from them of when they're going to be working. Just that once again, you keep the amount of days they do the projects over to as short a period as possible. Your apprentices are liable to get. And that's because each apprentice is tell us what you do, or tell us what your role is at work. How do you do those things that you do at work? And that is used for a number of reasons. First and foremost, it's a question that your apprentices ought to feel comfortable with, because if they know their job, they should be able to talk about it quite easily. So we do use it in that way as a starter and as a means of getting them calm. And one of the nice things was that our independent assessors are making your apprentices feel calm. They are making it a discussion. They're not making it an interrogation. And this sort of question will help. The other thing is, of course, if they are very good and know their job inside out, we are liable to get a lot of evidence out of that without going into further detailed questions later on in the interview. You should get your apprentices providing competency-based answers, giving examples. Summative Portfolio, we talked about STAR. And STAR is a method that is used quite a lot in interviews. So when asked the question of tell me about something you did on a project, talk it through, the situation, how it came about, how it was planned, what you actually did and the results and why you got the particular results. Those are the sorts of things that we're looking for. When asked questions like, so do you think the project went well? Just saying, yes, I did, is not sufficient as an answer. They need to be saying, yes, I did because. In terms of making sure they're ready, because the interviews will be allowed to be taken at home, you need to make sure that your apprentices have good internet connectivity, camera, microphone, preferably a headset, so that they can actually use the equipment appropriately when the interview takes place. Clearly, they need a suitable location. Having the computer on the dining room table with younger siblings around is not a good idea, or animals or parents. So they need to be set up somewhere where they can have some privacy. They need to make sure they have photo identification with them. Normally we suggest passport and driving license, but clearly if you provide them with photo ID for your organization, be it a private training provider or a college, then that is also suitable. They can have with them copies of their summative portfolio, the evidence they provided for the Synoptic project, and their employer reference to hand. So they can talk things through. If they don't remember everything, that's not a problem. They will be given a short amount of time to find what is being asked within the portfolio or the project or the employer reference. The other thing we would say is you can't add evidence to the summative portfolio once you've gone through Gateway, but your apprentices might do some other wonderful work past that, some things that they'd really like to talk about to show just how much they've learned and they've progressed. Well, they can take notes about those things into the interview, even if it isn't in the summative portfolio. So when answering a question, they might say, well, yes, you've seen that in my summative portfolio, but since then I've now done, and go into the one that they've done a lot more work and they feel much more proud of. In terms of the interview, some simple hints and tips for them. Speak clearly and concisely. We will expect the camera to be on. We will be expecting to see their face, so we'll know if they're tapping away on their computer and looking up answers on Google or any other favorite internet browser that's available. So make sure that they're using only the materials that they can take in to the interview. And talk about what they have done. It's about what I did. I work as part of the team, and the team do all these wonderful things. The team may do wonderful things, but what is the role of the apprentice within that team? What makes that team in terms of how the apprentice contributes to it? And use examples. As I say, talk through something that they've done to highlight what they're being asked. Don't be vague. And think about the answers. You don't have to answer immediately. And if they don't understand the question, ask for it to be rephrased, or ask for it to be repeated. Things are stressful at the best of times, and now probably even more so. They need to stay calm. We're there to try and help them pass. And add further, they shouldn't feel scared about leading and put the context in answers of the workplace. Don't talk about things that they might be able to do at home or the other wonderful things that they've seen or whatever. Talk about how their answers relate to how they do their job. And remember, the interviewer does, so they need to just talk those things through. So some of the meeting outcomes in the summative portfolio. After all, only multiple choice tests. They really do not show how we're looking for is when they describe in their summative portfolio how they've gone about a piece of work, how they've decided to do something. How did they know how to do that? What have you taught them in order that they can make those decisions? Now, we're not looking for them to repeat the curriculum of either of vendor products. What we're looking for is, I knew how to do this because I was shown these options, and this is the best one. In terms of the interview, the questions will come out of what the independent assessor sees in the summative portfolio, the project, and the employer reference. The only one we know is, what do you do? Should they include everything? We have just had recently 1 or 2 portfolios come in where it has been an evidence dump from something like OneFile or Smart Assessor. We only want their best work, and we want it collated. What I mean by that is, we do understand that for things like infrastructure technician or potentially even digital marketer, where they won't necessarily together and talk about those. So infrastructure technician, for example, they may be a frontline support person and get involved with queries about hardware issues, queries about software issues, other user problems. Well, take those hardware issues and talk about them in the case of, these are the typical have to deal with. So here's a list of the different types of things, and here's the details of one in particular, how I handled it, what I did, and the result, and what the client said. So pull things together. We don't just want random bits of paper. In terms of early work that they've done or improved work post the gateway, no, they can't be included. Don't include anything that is come before the date they started on the apprenticeship. Now, in terms of including something from right at the beginning of the apprenticeship, an opportunity that they've had to perform a particular task that meets a certain outcome, and that's the only time they've had the opportunity to do it, then yes, of course, if that's the only evidence they've got for that outcome, then please make sure that goes in to make sure that all outcomes of the standard are covered. In terms of vendor qualifications, check the standards. We can only accept as many vendor qualifications as stated in the standard as exemption. Now, in saying that, you can deliver as many vendor qualifications as you choose, but the ESFA will only pay for one of them. Either yourselves or the employer will have to pay for registration and certification of any others. But you can pay if you can show that the learning materials are relevant to the standard. It's the registration, exams, and certification that can't be paid for, any amount of vendor professional qualifications allowed in a standard. In terms of the Synoptic projects, we don't extend projects. The whole point we've created multiple projects is so that you can actually choose with the apprentice, potentially with the employer, closest match to what they do on a daily basis. Now, it might be you have a cohort of 10 apprentices and 5 of them do all do the same project because they do more or less the same thing in the employer do that. So please choose the projects, as I say, that are the closest to what your apprentices would normally do in their jobs. There is no pass mark for the Synoptic projects. We do not mark the Summative Portfolio, the Synoptic Project review separately. We look at the whole thing holistically. And it's why we were pleased when IFATE, the Institute for Apprentices, have come out with the statement about the occupational brief not being part of the standard, but being more about guidance. Because even with the occupational brief, if it says there should be 3 forms of communication, that's across all of the evidence for EPA, not just in the Summative Portfolio or not just in the Synoptic Project. And that's the way we look at it. So if you come to us and say, well, I think my apprentice failed their EPA and it was on the Synoptic Project, so what mark do they need to get? Then the answer will be, well, there isn't one. It has to be done through that holistic framework. Can the Synoptic Project an interview be done at the employer's premises? The answer to that is absolutely. Of course they can, but you need to make sure that the employer has a designated responsible person and that they follow the guidelines that we provide in our EPA packs. They are responsible, but ultimately you are accountable if things don't happen properly. And of course, the interview under normal circumstances would be allowed to happen either with you or at the employer's premises. We don't like people sending their apprentices to Costa or to McDonald's or other fast food outlets because allegedly the internet there is a lot faster than what they have on their premises. This is a serious professional discussion and they do need the privacy and the location to be able to do it appropriately. As I've said, in terms of the Synoptic project right now, we do have the dispensation to allow it to be done at home, and you can find out what that dispensation means by going to our website, going to the COVID-19, to the EPA section under which you will find frequently asked questions. And if you scroll down that page, you will find dated the 31st of March, so updated 31st of March digital standards dispensations, where it will tell you exactly what we will allow. One of the questions that we started to get just before Christmas and have started to get this year is what sort of things can actually lead to an apprentice failure, of how well they do in the other elements. All the digital assessment plans state quite clearly that all outcomes in the summative portfolio must be met. That is knowledge, competence, and behaviours. And as I've said, in terms of the knowledge, it's about them linking up what they've learnt with what they do. It's not about regurgitating curriculum. We have had a couple of occasions where the employer references whatsoever. We had one at the beginning of the year where, and I can understand from an employer's point of view that they are a team player and they believe very much in the strength of their team, but writing an employer reference that says, we do these things, this is how we work, these are the people we work with, tells us nothing about the apprentice. And unfortunately, that apprentice had also written up their summative portfolio in the same way and talked about what the team did and not what they did or how they contributed to the running of the business. Providing evidence, including witness testimonies, please, please, please do not annotate these things. Do not annotate the summative portfolio. Do not annotate the Synoptic Project evidence. Do not annotate the employer reference. Do not allude to any grading or marking on them. We need to see copies of those documents in their original form. Of course, as tutor assessors, we expect you to give them feedback on what they're doing and feedback on the things that they are submitting. We know that is a natural thing, and it should be the thing you should be doing, because you will have been doing that all the way along through their learner journey to Gateway. But make sure those comments and things that you write or talk about are kept separately from the final documents that are submitted. If you write any grading comments on those papers, then they could be subject to being rejected. And finally, consistent versus consistently. So this morning we talked about consistent in terms of summative portfolio, and what we ask for is that the evidence being submitted, that it is a single font usage. The way the reports are written and the evidence is provided is that it's laid out and set up in the same way from document to document to make it easier for the independent assessor to work through. However, if you come across in any of the outcomes the word consistently, then we would expect to see at least 2 or 3 instances of that outcome being met. So we're looking for it to be done on multiple occasions and in the same way. Any questions?
What happens when the apprentice doesn't have the equipment or resources to complete the Synoptic project at home? For example, infrastructure or network engineer where physical equipment is required. Could rules on payment for a VAS, virtual assessment service, be relaxed during this time?
So in terms of infrastructure technician and network engineer, where we would normally expect them to have access to hardware, option has been made at this moment in time to relax the payment of that in the packet tracer software instead. If we've got people on the call who are doing the unified communications technician, I'm reliably informed by the person who wrote those that all of those ought to be able to run over packet tracer as well, but I would urge you just to check that through before you get your apprentices started on it. So we would urge you to move to the virtual assessment platform to be able to do it. So there is an alternative.
Maybe we can carry on. Are you able to carry on, Ken? And we can come back to that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, later. Okay.
So sorry to bore those of you with us this morning, but really just to outline some of the things that our customers, there is the COVID, is to allow the on-program exams to be done and invigilated remotely by you. The reason that we're holding off on that is because Ofqual are very nervous about us doing that also with functional skills, which is a large part of some of the work that we do in terms of online testing. So we're waiting for everybody to just agree that the proposal, and I'll say a bit more about that towards the end, about how you can get those alerts. So please, 4 propositions, one of which is paid for, the others are free. So there's free e-learning materials to support the management of COVID-19. We are giving free access to some of the platforms and content where it is available for certain standards and distance learning. We don't have a great deal of that for the standards, apart from the stuff that you can easily access when you register an apprentice with us, where you can get hold of all the support materials to help you with the EPA element. Again, for those people doing the Unified Communications Technician, I have asked that the Apprenticeship Training Manual be included as part of the free resources that we can provide to people doing that to help at this time. We've also got a number of free tools to help an apprentice work with a remote assessor to prepare for endpoint assessment as well. And again, all of that is found through the COVID-19 page. The last bit that says paid is our product that forms part of the Get to Gateway solution that we provide. And just to say, Get to Gateway is a bit of a misnomer for it, because there are a lot of things in there that cover the broad spectrum of the apprenticeships that we have material available for. And the standards we have material available for are the digital marketer, network engineer, and infrastructure technician. It's a full online learning program. It has the ability to capture various evidence for tasks and things that the apprentice is expected to do along the way. And also it has a calendar in there so that you can schedule regular meetings with your apprentices. It will also notify you when they've done something, and it allows you to keep an eye on how they're working through each of the sections that they're involved with within the online learning. If you are interested in finding out more about that, please let David or myself know, and we can get one of our colleagues from our digital services team to contact you, talk you through it, and potentially give you a demonstration if you'd like to see more. In terms of these EPA process support, if you're struggling with getting things to the portal or registering people through Walled Garden, or working your way through the EPA process, please contact the customer service people and ask if somebody from the EPA customer success team, our EPA support team, can give you a call and talk you through some of those things. Of course, there's also the business account managers as well, who can help you, and I will do tends to sit with either the business account managers or with the EPA support team. And in addition to them, we also have the EPA partnership managers looking down or chasing certificates from IFATE and various other items around that, and also helping you with employers and helping keep them up to date. In terms of keeping in touch, as always, for those of you who know myself and David, we're always, if however you need us to talk to you face to face because you want a bigger discussion, make that happen. And if you need us to do something like the briefings we're doing today for your wider team, we can set up a GoToMeetings, or we can set up a Teams meeting to bring all of those people together and do that. In addition to that availability, we are going to continue, and we can solve issues, hopefully, as they happen, and as the situation we're in now over the next few weeks and months. So on the 28th of April, we'll be having a Keep in Touch webinar. It's any questions, so bring the issues and things that you need to resolve. You should have got an alert about those, so please make sure you sign up for that. If you can't make that one, there's a Keep in Touch issues, questions that you want to bring to the table. On the 30th of April, we are launching a new product, Apprenticeship Portfolio, and the next one in line we will talk about at that webinar. We are hoping to get 3 out by September, and this will be the first of those. So please join us for that. Useful contacts and links, David and mine email. Please contact apprenticeships@cityandguilds.com. Please go on to that cityandguilds.com/COVID-19 page if you need details that you're working with and standards you're working with at the moment. You'll also find under there the walled garden booking guide site, and you click on where it says email updates. This will take you through to a thing called the Preference Center, where you can choose what you want to be in a way that we are going to send out information to as wide a population of the City and Guilds centers as we possibly can. We have no other way of keeping lists. They go out of date far too quickly if we keep them personally. So please, please, please updates. Before I say thank you,
covered some of it with regard to functional skills, but he says he has learners who are not due to do EPA until December, but have planned to do the on-program exams with them, which is Principles of Coding, next week. What's the situation with that? Can they do those exams remotely before the EPA?
So the answer to that is that's what we want to allow you to do. We were hoping to have an announcement tomorrow to say that Ofqual decided that when they'd so at this moment in time, please watch this space. I can't say to you, yes, go ahead, but we will look to keep you informed. The moment we have the go ahead, we will be flooding the airwaves about it, because we've got lots and lots of people coming up to the end of their year who should be taking functional skills and other online tests. So it is quite important for us.
I think you've probably answered that as well. Any idea when we might get a
phone call this morning from my colleague who's dealing with all of those sorts of issues, because she knew I had 2 webinars today and was liable to say, oh, we'll be telling you tomorrow. We don't know is the honest answer. We hope that we can get it sorted out by the end of this week, but we're at their mercy. We are also going to our EQA body about the on-program qualifications. The functional skills things are operated and
so far. I'll give you a couple more minutes to have anything further, but
my thanks to everybody, again for joining us on the webinars and staying in touch, but also again for making David and I at this moment in time appear as heroes, because we're seeing very, very good pass rates, and as I say, that is